All right, everyone, welcome to De&Th Diaries episode 2. Today we're speaking with one of our Brazilian friends. We're learning how to build an effective threat program.
Yeah, and we're excited for this episode because Calil has a decade of experience in incident response, malware analysis, and forensics. He currently does engineering and architecture work, and he is also the captain. Calil and I met during I was working on a Sherlock, and I asked for a nudge. And then ever since then, I think we started talking, right? Is that how we met?
Yeah, I guess it's right. I saw I was always keeping attention on the ActiveBox forum about Sherlock because I was trying to do all the Sherlocks in like what month.
Damn.
I didn't finish. I did like just 90 of like 100 something. Was almost there. But yeah, I remember to see your message and we started to talk about it. The Sherlock that he was working on and I started about it, but the one that I was working on and that's how it started.
That's how I started.
Can you explain to people what Sherlocks are?
Yeah. So Sherlocks are these machines on HackTheBox where they give you a bunch of forensic artifacts in a zip file, and they, give you 10, 15, a dozen questions, and you have to basically, parse through either EVTX logs, your Windows logs, or any other forensic artifacts they give you, and answer those questions. So I think it's really great strategy to learn forensics. Either endpoint, they have some cloud ones as well, network forensics. And then how did Capital come to be? Because that's something interesting too.
Oh, well, Capital Research is like a closed community, if I can say that. But it's basically a group of friends that I saw that was passionate about cybersecurity. And in different aspects, we have more pen testers and guys that work with red team. There's what the boys talk about more. But it's basically just a group that started based in 100% Brazil, but why we saw like people from another part of the world, like India, Netherlands, US, or whatever they are, we started to invite into a group in Discord and try to do like sessions. The idea besides the sessions are basically share knowledge, show what you're working, maybe do like a challenge together. Sometimes before I do speeches outside in conference, we do inside here to get more insights and different perspectives. And well, that's pretty much about. And good thing that are coming out for Capital this month is our website is getting really good. So we're gonna be able to post all the independent research that we did in the past and the vulnerabilities that we found and things like we did together in pro of just share knowledge.
No, that's cool. Excited for that website. So yeah. So let's bring this back to threat hunting, and we heard that you've stood up threat hunting programs before. So I guess the first question we had, right, because this is ourselves, we want to learn. Did you first pitch the hunting program to leadership? And if not, if they brought it up, how was that justified? Like, what resonated with them? Why did they want to start threat hunting?
Well, that's a really good question. I think every time you're inside a company that has like mature teams about incident response, SOC analysts, you have a good business unit working on these things. You will have a lot of information, right? You have cyber breach intelligence, you have incidents going on, you have red team going on. So every time you have like a good business unit like this, threat hunting always showed up. Like, what can we do with all this information? And my first time pitching about threat hunting was my individual initiative because I saw some posts and conference about it, and I was seeing a lot of data getting into the storage, but nobody using them even for reports, nothing useful. So and pitching about that was actually the first thing that dived me really deep into threat hunting. And the first thing I learned is that the leadership, they don't care about your code queries, your MITRE-ATT&CK covert maps. They don't care about these things at all. They care about like see the risk reduction and what you're seeing, what you exposed to them, what information you brought it up, and nobody paid attention. They want to see exactly the weak spots and what are the findings. And a little about the pitch is like you need to have like a good and a solid framework, and to work on that you need to go to the basics of cybersecurity, blue team it all. That's basically reply to 5 whys or something like that. What are we missing right now? What exactly we have? We have CM logs, we have ADR, we have XDR. What we have? Do we have network logs? Do we have VPN logs? And that is the things you need to look on it. And besides that, we started to create a framework based on the good things that already work well in the outside your company.
Okay. So you said I want to do threat hunting. I'm seeing some risks we can expose. I'm gonna get it started. So did you have to build the separate team, or did you ask people within the SOC to help you? Did they give you that autonomy?
Mhm. Well, yes, I had the autonomy to start by myself, and the question about like having a dedicated team and an integrated threat hunting to SOC is a really practical question, and honestly, the answer depends on the maturity and the resources you have. Because sometimes you're working in a fintech and they don't have that much people to work on the researching inside the data, or they need to keep the things moving. And in most cases, especially when you're starting out, you don't have the luxury of dedicating hunting. Like I said, it's a fintech, a small business. You won't have these people to do the researching for you. What I've seen work well is embedding the hunting as a capability, not exactly like a thing, and putting like not like a separated silo. So the same analysts who handle incidents, who are monitoring, the same analysts that are working on strategic intelligence, and sometimes the analysts that are involving in purple team and red team activities, they're the guys that are gonna have and bring you the most benefit. And they need to be the people that are doing the hunting inside the company because they know the alerts, the gaps, they know all the operational context inside the company, and they will have really nice insights and things that they already know that is not going well and bring it to you.
So you're saying that like the analysts that are already there, the incident responders, are perfect for transitioning into threat hunting.
Yeah. But like I said, it depends. Sometimes you have like a big SOC team, but you have more people that is informative career. So basically, people that just start the career into the university or into the job or whatever. And these people sometimes don't have that much knowledge about. They're just learning. They're there for learning. But when you have people, specialized people, analysts, that know what is going on inside, know how the process works, know how the baseline of behavior inside the company works, these guys are the right option for the food hunting.
Okay, cool. Perfect for what we want to do. Transitions right from IR. Okay, so boom. Calil, now you're starting this program, right? Leadership said, yeah, go ahead. They give you the green light. So how do you standardize your threat hunting? Because we know that there's unstructured ad hoc hunting, there's structured. So how do you standardize that? And was there any frameworks that you leaned on? Was there anything that you used to support yourself? What were those beginning stages looking like?
Yeah, well, this is where having a framework makes all the difference between like hunting being a real capability versus like people poking around logs and doing SQL queries or whatever form of queries you're doing. The approach that I personally follow is based on Peak. That was originally developed by this one team. I think it was David Young. No, I think now it's maintained by Splunk, but it wasn't originated from Splunk, whatever. And it's a really good framework because it gives you a really good life cycle about the hypothesis driving and how you can adapt this into the business. How can you adapt this to the operational reality and maintain the philosophy and as a core inside your team. And you can think of it like the framework, if we can say a little bit about it, in like four phases, like the topic selection, the campaign planning, the execution, and the action. So there's a few things that I would like to say about the topic selection because everyone thinks it's really easy and it's a random thing. But topic selection is basically where you're gonna decide what to hunt for. And this is not random like people say, oh, I see like APTs working on this thing, let me do that. No, this is like a really nice job you need to do. You need to cross-reference multiple intelligence sources, do risk assessments, investigate the past incidents, see the red team, the pen test findings, and external that correlate that with intel from MitraTech or vendor reports. Because if you just choose like a random thing that you're interested to work on it, you might not bring like useful action plans. You might not bring like good findings. You're gonna just bring information that we don't need it. It's not important to us. It's not valid for the context of the company. And the topic selection, I think, is where people most fail at all because they don't even know how to start it, and they just get a thing because they either say, hey, you need to conduct the truth hunting, and that's how to do it. And he just like get the most fancy topic. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. The other phases, if I'm speaking too much, just let me know, okay?
No, go
The
ahead,
other
go
phase is
ahead.
just like yeah, the other phase is just like think I think would be the campaign planning. Is about the feasibility. So you need to ask yourself: do you have the data? Do you have the rights logs ingested? Who's doing that? What is the time box? Like you need to articulate it and create the campaign based on exactly. Okay, you already have the topic. We are suffering with this sites I saw in past incidents, and I saw the groups going in this way. So what exact logs I can attach myself and be besides and monitor to get this information. And based on the topic and based on what you have is where you create your campaign, is where you start to structure everything and make this document really, really updated because you need to track everything from the motivation to the outcomes. And if something changes during the path, you need to let people know what happened. The other two phases are really basic. Is the execution that is basically where you you're gonna go to the data lake, you're gonna go to your CM and investigate it there. There's not too much about it how to say it, but of course, even if you're conducting a truth hunting, we know you're doing, but if you see something that is critical, please escalate. Sometimes people do truth hunting, they say, "Oh, I found this, but let me put this in my document and make the presentation a month go a month after I find that." No, if it's critical, if you see something happening, you need to escalate and need to share with the team and involve the teams to work on it immediately. So yeah, that's pretty much about the phases that I like to follow. The framework that I think is really important to have like already a solid basis to start. And of course, you're going to change a few things to make the context more useful for your company, for your team, and for your philosophy of cybersecurity.
We're gonna pause right here. Sorry. You're...
Findings into Fowler, if I can say that, you're going to create new detection rules, you're going to update your dashboards, you're going to follow the hardening recommendations, you're going to fill it up the documentation about something that you saw that is not properly done, and every hunt like produce something really practical, really or conceptual. And if you don't find active compromise, maybe you discover like you're blind in a critical area. So that's pretty much about the action. No, not too much.
Oh, okay. Okay, no, that's really good information. I think that peak framework is something that we read pretty early on. But as a
Yeah.
novice, sometimes you don't know exactly how to implement it. So I guess we went over two questions with that because we already went over how the hunt life cycle looks like, right?
Uh, yeah.
So that's awesome. So now that you have a framework to follow, right? You're looking at the peak
Mhm.
framework. In addition to that, is there anything else that you use personally, or is it just those frameworks? And how do you measure like the success of your hunting program? How do you know it was successful? Because sometimes as a threat hunter, you can come back without any of the results you intended to look for or find. So how do you tell leadership like, hey, just because we didn't find anything doesn't mean that this was a waste of time?
Well, that's one of the hardest questions, not just in truth hunting, but I think also in cybersecurity in general, because when you talk about cybersecurity and value that you generate, it's really hard to explain the HADs or the leaders because cybersecurity is like it's like a extinguisher, that you leave by your door in your car in case something happened, because things are always happening and we don't generate value at all. We just like try to prevent bad things to happen, and it's really hard to even when we generate value to explain that to the leaders. But more focus on threat hunting. It's always like the dumbest question that they get to us, like, did you find any breach or something? It is really hard to follow these metrics, and if you only measure by compromise found in a quiet quarter looks like failure, it means like your defenses are not working, and maybe you're working in a blind spot, or you're working in something that you're not paying attention, or the things are not properly done. But the metrics that I would personally follow and I did in the past, I think they're really based on ask myself when I finish all the process, like how many hunting campaigns we did by sprint, by a quarter, how many new detections we create, how many visibility gaps we identify and we address. Are these things like the easiest and the most tangible things to track? Like what exactly should we do right now? Did we generate value. These are like the ultimate metrics that you get from threat hunting, even if you don't find nothing that bad. And about metrics for executive reports, we can use like the coverage metrics of March attack and show them before the threat hunting campaigns, after the threat hunting. Like before this quarter, we had like a detection coverage for 40% of relevant techniques, and now we are 55. Now we are 60. There's a number that they understand. There's a number that they will say, hey, oh, you guys increased like 15% of the whole March attack, so that's a good thing. That's why it is a really hard question, but anyway, that's what I do.
No. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that is keeping track of metrics is always sort of a challenge sometimes. So talking about the process and the value that threat hunters bring, and just the overall program. So since you've set up a program, right, what is the main difference between a program that's new, when it just started, to one that's mature and fully fledged out?
When you talk about program, you talk the whole framework, the whole life cycle, like what exactly mean that?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about a fully fledged out program, one that's mature, right? Like you said, you mentioned going on a couple hunts per quarter or whatever the company deems, necessary. So how do you, what is the main difference, I guess, between a program that's like a baby program that just started, right, versus one that's been going on for a year that's a lot more mature? I guess like in your example, right, you started a threat hunting program, so I guess what was the difference between those first 30 days from like 6 months from that? Like, what changed? What has to change for the program to be well structured and an effective one?
So I think that the most important part for me when I have a mature program and I have people involved in that is like I see people really developing their mind to think like a hacker, to think like an attacker, to think how these things can generate impact. But of course, you also have some metrics like process metrics, like the time from the hypothesis to the completed campaign. So you have more a specialized team that can do best queries, like find more blind spots, that can do more log parsing manually without the CM. So these things are really good, and when you have a mature program, they really show how your team going, and this is really awesome. See people like developing themselves and make the process easier, thinking about automations and things like that. This is something they're really proud of when you see the program is running and everyone enjoying the process. And also, of course, besides that, while every program you have output, new queries, new whatever, new dashboards, you also reduce you also have some impact metrics that basically the reduction mean time to detect threats, the number of misconfigurations, and you have these things like better connected and following a better workflow than it was, So for sure, these are the most satisfying things to see when you have a metric program.
Okay, yeah, reducing those mean time to detect, that dwell time, etc. I think that's a good way to see, hey, we're actually making progress here. So what advice would you give to teams who want to, start hunting? They want it to be scalable. They want to be repeatable, right? And that they don't want it to just be, hey, we saw a blog, let's do an ad hoc hunt. What advice would you give to these companies that are trying to start, an effective, repeatable program?
I think I would give like 5 pieces of advice.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The first one is document. Yeah. The first one is document everything. Please write everything. Please do it. A hunt is not documented. It didn't happen. If you don't put why your test is going that way, why these things never happen if you don't document, and you're not gonna live like a history of evolution. You won't be able to track all the metrics that we talked before. So the first advice would be document things that you saw besides the work, you saw in the conference, you saw like attacker doing, you saw like a new vulnerability, document, talk with your team about and see what they like about that plan, see what, have your own notes too, to show yourself that you're developing yourself in this way. The second for sure would be like start with intelligence, not tools. Don't think like you're gonna go to GitHub, find threat hunting tools and have a tool that does everything for you. No. go with intelligence. Threat hunting uh, is about using data. It's about using data properly. It's making reports. It's generating intelligence in a way. So you need to go to your own environment, your own infrastructure, look inside everything and see what is not working properly, why we fail in the last incidents, why we are not detecting these things. These are definitely the best things you're gonna find, and this will generate a lot of impact in your hunting if you look with intelligence and not tools. Because the ADR can fail, the CM can fail, or everything gonna fail one day. Everything has a vulnerability. That's why you have like a bunch of vulnerabilities going out every day. So that's definitely the second advice. The third, the fourth, the fifth, like the third, for sure make every hunt produce something. If even if you don't find nothing, you should produce at least something: a visibility report, a hardening recommendation, a better documentation of why your hunt didn't found nothing. Is the processing not working properly? Is the framework not updated? Please do the hunt produce something. Go out the hunt with at least an idea. The fourth would be like probably protect the hunting time. If you're hunting something like people do, like when they get around to do that, like put in your calendar. Don't lose yourself. Today it's really easy to start to read something and you get lost with new information. Even if you're cybersecurity, you just receive a Teams or a Slack message say, "Hey, I need your help." If you work with SOC analysts or if you're incident response, you're gonna you have this type of problems. So dedicate your time for the hunting because it's something that will make the outcomes be more easy to understand, be more valued, and you're gonna work better if you separate a specific time. And for sure, the last but not the less important is feed your finds back into the systems. So make the new detections that you create go to production, new topics go to the backlog. Everything you find, this is really connected about how you get the outcomes from it. So if you don't close the loop, like I start with the hypothesis, I conduct the hunting, I got these findings, and I create this rule that are running sandbox. No, you didn't make a good job. You should follow the whole loop and make sure it's closed in the way you want it and the way that you would like to see going on in the future.
No, yeah, that's. I mean, I think all those five are something that every company should keep in mind. Especially the
Oh yeah.
documentation. I think that you know everyone should keep track of what queries they're using to find stuff. And even if you don't have a successful
Yeah.
hunt, right? Because it might be structured as well, and then you still might not find anything. I think if you still run those hunts, at the end of the day, potentially you find other misconfigurations. You find users that are over permissioned, right, etc. So, sometimes even when you run a hunt, it might boil down to something else that's totally irrelevant to the hunt, but still provide value. So I think it's important to keep in mind that
Yeah.
hey, you might not exactly find what you want to find, but there's always something else
Mhm.
that a hunter could find. Especially during those sessions where you might go out of scope a little bit, just because you're like locked in, so you just start finding a bunch of random crap. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I see. Like, and it's also like, okay, let's suppose like in your company this week you're gonna conduct the hunting, or this quarter you're gonna conduct the hunting. If your last friend documented something that you was thinking about that you saw as a problem and he didn't find nothing, maybe it should be a good idea to review it. But this is just gonna be possible if people document things. So you're gonna reduce this overworking, this redoing the same job, redoing the same hypotheses, and you enchant something that you wasn't proud of the hunting, that you know that there's something there, but your friend or your colleague didn't found. Like do things about it. The documentation is definitely your best friend in tooth hunting, and you're gonna make the things way nicer.
yeah, no, I agree. So in your opinion, then, what makes a good hunt? Like, have you ever hunted for something and found something super interesting? And if not, yeah, what makes a good hunt, right? Like, I think in detection engineering, right, a good detection, is one that, usually behavioral, that catches activity, right? Doesn't produce a lot of false
Mhm.
positives, one that's pretty, neatly tuned, et cetera, et cetera. So what does a good hunt look like?
Well, something about the false positive during hunting. they're actually vulnerable because they basically are telling you like, hey, everything's normal. Was supposed to be like that. So that's good. That's the good part of hunting. And document this as a baseline behavior and use it to tune your detections is awesome. Like I say, the documentation is your best friend. But a good hunt that is not like a rocket science. A good hunt is basically refines your understanding of both malicious and benign activity. So that a good hunt refines how you see and how you understand, how you check the perimeter of your company and looking for malicious activities and normal activities. So for sure, a good hunt has all this documented, has all these outcomes telling what he saw was normal, what he saw was abnormal, and yeah, I think that's the best way to define that.
No, that's yeah. I think that's very important to realize that, like you said, even if you don't find anything malicious, dude, like there's gonna be benign behavior that I guess gets you it brings awareness to the environment and the infrastructure. At least you learn a lot more, right?
Yeah,
Regardless. So
yeah. Like if you sorry,
yeah.
but like if you saw that your help desk team, they use like team viewer to access people's computer and fix what they have to be fixed. But you saw like some user using AnyDesk at 2 a.m. This is not a normal behavior. I know that the company used like remote access tools that are not like 100% corporate,
Yeah.
but this is not a normal behavior. So if you have documented the normal activities, a good baseline, you would know exactly when you look at it at the end desk. It's not because it's 2 a.m., but you saw that it's at any desk. You know that that's something weird and that there's something being hidden over there.
Yeah. No, yeah. And now so we've been talking about a lot of, those manual hunts, right? And the direction that the industry is moving towards with AI, machine learning and stuff, right? Everyone
Yeah.
loves AI. So have you seen
Mhm.
any use cases personally? If not, it's totally fine because it's something that's coming out now. I think a lot of either threat hunting platforms or tools that bring
Mhm.
automation. Is there anything you've seen, you've used, or when you set up the program, was it purely yourself and no automation, no machine learning? How did that go?
Well, I think it's important to be real about this. Like most hunting programs, especially the early ones, they're heavily manual and query driven, and that's completely okay. There's an enormous value on human analysts with cute hypotheses, running target queries, and you don't let anyone tell that you need ML to start hunting. And like I said, automation has a natural place in the life cycle, but I think it's a maturity spectrum for like detection outputs. So you can have like signature and rows. You can put automation there. You can have analytics encode. You can that's not just ML. It's math, but the machine learning and AI can definitely help you with that. You can have like same automated dashboards and manual reports, but machine learning, especially, it becomes relevant when you have enough baseline data and enough maturity to deploy a behavior analytics or clustering for anomaly detection. But of course, unfortunately, most organizations get tremendous value from well-crafted rules and statistics a lot long before they need them out. So, it's good to know the fundamentals. I know that sometimes sucks create dashboards and all these things.
Yeah.
Try to use the automation, but maintain your mind ready for the scenarios, thinking about the new hypotheses, thinking about the gaps you saw. And to be honest, in my opinion, where automation to me really matters is in the boring part. So data collection, baseline computation, and especially like turning confirmed hunting finds into production detections that run continuously. Like this could have automation. Definitely, this could be is the right thing to use automation. The goal is like that every manual hunt eventually produce something automated. You're gonna produce a query, dashboard, or whatever. But I did a solid program. The things that I'm working with AI, I can talk a little bit, was more related to service with intelligence, was really cool. But I still think for tooth hunting, You need to take your time. It's not like a prompt that's gonna solve your problems.
Yeah. No, that's real. There's no prompt that's gonna solve your problem. I think that's a good reply.
Yeah.
And no, I'm
Yeah.
interested in the CTI. You used auto AI for some CTI. I'm assuming gathering resources, or how did that look?
Well, being sure with that, we had a problem. Okay, we don't have CTI information, so we cannot conduct the huntings. So this is like one of the things that we would like to fix before start hunting, before training people for that, before work into the framework. So the company that I was working at the time, we decided to create like a scrapper for vendor websites, and that's fine. There's a easy thing that everyone does, right? But we put an AI in a specific spot that was really, really nice and make the things a game changer. Uh, with all this information, we saved this information and we put an AI agent to, read and collect this information where we store it and base it in prompts. Not I'm saying prompts because it's a multi-stage. It's not just prompt. I can explain that later, but we base it in prompts, phased prompts, like to define and tell us, okay, based in the context of the company, we have this, and this solution. We are working on these industries and these things. AI, please let us know, is this relevant for us or no? If it's relevant, you put this information in the JSON file over here, and we get this information and send to MISP. After that, we send all the IOCs to security solutions like firewalls on the edge, ADR, or data lake to RCN, everything. So using AI in this process was like as a broker. So you have all the sources in the internet about cybersecurity, and you have an AI saying, "Hey, this is relevant for your company. Hey, this is not." So that was really cool. Really, really nice. And when I say like prompts in plural, is because we had a lot of problems with hallucination. We had a lot of problems with models that we need to separating three different prompts: one to extract the info, another one to decide, and another one to double check the response. And we gotta remember it was like 80% of accuracy, so it was really, really nice. And we also after that we started to generate reports for the team. So any cloud security team, I saw cloud platform team, I saw there's some three actors using Puppet, two actors using Chef, and these are things that I'm used to deploy and run commands across the infrastructure. So you guys should take a look at that. You guys should take a look at how they're exploring these things and if you're safe. So it's really, really nice to use AI in this process.
Cool. No, thank you for explaining that because one thing that's funny is that sometimes as a threat hunter, you also have to be the CTI team because not every company has a whole CTI team or a threat hunting team. So if you learn how to automate that, honestly, it would save so much time, especially if there's only 1 to 2 hunters. Or if you're in a company that is requiring you as an analyst or as an incident responder to do threat hunting, right? Managing multiple hats.
Yeah.
So I think that the better we leverage AI to collect those sources of information, those DTPs, I think the better the hunts, the more valuable they are.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I said, hunting is about intelligence. It's not about tools. So like you cannot put the AI to generate the hypothesis for you. You cannot put the AI to do all the queries for you. As a SOC analyst, an incident response analyst, or whatever you are, you should be able to do the queries. If you're into this, you should be able to do the queries. You know exactly what you're looking for. So use AI in like boring parts like this. We had a problem. How can we define everything that is relevant for us or not? Like, how are we going to do this with all the sources on the internet? Every day we have a vulnerability. Every day we have a report about APT group. Every day we have a ransom attack. So using AI to say yes or no, that's an easy task for the AI. It was really, really good for us. We make the things way nicer and easier.
Hell yeah, dude. No, that's what we like to hear. Anything to, make things a lot more efficient for the company.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much all the questions we had regarding starting a threat hunting program. I think this is a lot of good insight into what a company needs to deem relevant, what things they can automate, and you even talked about the frameworks that are useful as a hunter. Is there anything you're personally working on? Where we can close this off. Is there anything you're working on that you're excited to talk about? Any accomplishments recently? I know you've been doing a lot of research. So yeah, just to close it off, anything that you want to talk about before we end the episode?
Well, this week was really awesome for me, but first, I'd like just to give everyone advice that truth hunting as AD hoc investigation instead of a stricter, repeatable process and not documented, those are the things that will cure your problems, that will cure your framework. So don't do that. Follow my advice. I know what I'm talking about. I suffer a lot. I don't want to sound like a smarty pants. I'm just telling you that if you don't document it, if you don't attach yourself and your company into a framework that makes sense for you guys, because of course you have different type of industries and teams and realities. So do that, and the things will look nicer, look easier, will follow a nice way. And I don't know, I really like when I see like things that I create going across the whole company, following years and years going on before I update. It's really nice to see like your child growing up. But yeah, but I say that this week was really nice for me because I recently got my first CVA and also my first second CVA.
Hell
I
yeah.
was investigating and do some free search on program solutions like, but basically after I saw the telnet vulnerability, I said, hey, it might be their softwares like that that are really old and nobody's taking a look at it. And I went to a project that is a program using, it's not a program, it's a utility use it in the most like 10 billion devices in the world. Every single IoT containers or whatever use this guy, that is called a BizBox. There's basically a Swiss Army knife that has a lot of utilities for, instead to download a whole Linux and have all those guys there, you have this little package already compacted with everything. And the last update on the code was 2024 when they implement some security checks, like some path traversal protections and things like that. And when I look at that, I say, hey, this line doesn't make sense. Let me just try it for a while. And it took like 30 minutes, and I got a path traversal. And after some moments, some hours, I think thinking about it and see what I have been done, I said, hey, what if I create maybe a tar archive that is inode of a system file, and when I unpacked, it's gonna be a hard link because they don't do validation of this. They don't do if the file is doing a hard link on the thing. People don't know a lot about hard links, but they are pretty much a sing link, but it's a sing link that if you added the link, it also gonna add it the source file. It's not just a sing link. It's a door to the to the original file. And I got this too. I created a file that I was modifying my file, and also at the same time I was modifying the ATC shadow, the HC that's WD, the SCGA keys and everything. And I got the second vulnerability about hard link bypass because they didn't make a proper validation of the tar archives and another ones. But yeah, that's pretty much how my week was. And thank you guys for the invite. It was really awesome to decide. I know that I talk a lot, but I hope that you guys enjoy it, and we can in the future go back with new ideas.
Of course. No, thank you for joining the episode. Congrats on your 2 CVEs. And again,
Thank you.
thank you for taking time to speak with us and help us understand a lot better, how can we get started? Because again, we want to remind everyone that this is Andy and I trying to learn threat hunting. So, this is a lot of good information that we're going to take notes and bring back, and help ourselves and everyone else, with developing programs like these. So thank you again, Hakal. Do you want to talk about where we can find you? Last thing.
Well, you guys can find me on LinkedIn. Calil is the same thing, almost the same name. You just change the C for a key H. And well, you might find it in every single social media. Also, GitHub is the same. And also, if you're lazy and don't want to go to all the social media, you can go to my website. That's https://hak.al. That's basically my hacker name, Hakal. So you guys can follow that and see all the things that I've been working. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go here.